Okay, I'm here with Jonathan, aka Jacob Meijer. Here is Jacob your second name, or you?
Yeah, second then. Yeah.
I'm here with Jonathan Jacob Meijer, who's known for being one of the most prolific donors and now one of the most famous donors as well. Um, I think you got the most attention when the Netflix documentary came out. Now, after doing a lot of review and looking more deep and talking to donors, I don't think it was necessarily a documentary. I think it was more of a drama story, more of um, a dramatic story to get a lot of attention and a lot of views, which worked very well. Actually, my girlfriend watched the Netflix episode the other day, and she got scared as well about my work, even though she knows me very well. So they did a really good job at touching um, the viewers there and the women, making them scared of donors and the industry overall. But we're not just going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about a bunch of different things. So first of all, thank you, Jonathan, that you're putting yourself out there and that you're having this conversation with me today.
Yeah, I appreciate the invitation. Excuse me for the way I've just had a flu last week, so I look a little bit pale and still a little bit ill, but I'm doing fine.
Yeah, your hair is still blonde and blonde.
I have a little thing, so people know I'm fine. It's just the flu, nothing. It's winter in Europe, so we all have the flu now.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people who know this already, but I wanted to ask this anyways to kind of set a ground line for you and your motivation. When you first started to become a donor, what originally motivated you in taking that step?
Um, I think seeing infertility around me, like couples that were struggling with not having children, and coming from a big family myself, and knowing the joy of having multiple siblings. I have one brother and six sisters. Yeah, to see other families not being able to have at least one child and the pain that they struggle with, that made me realize that I can do something to help those families. And that was basically when I met with my colleague in university or college, my a co-student, and he told about his process in his infertility, and then he shared with me that the possibility is also having the help of a sperm donor. That was when seeing the sadness of all the infertile couples that I knew, connecting with the sperm donor, that I could actively do something about it.
Okay, so you also felt like there was a demand for someone like you to become a donor because you could have also said, "Hey, I'm going to become a fertility specialist or a toxicity specialist, or a fertility doctor," but you instead said you wanted to become a sperm donor. Why do you think, or what made you think that has the most impact for these couples?
Yeah, first of all, I think that I love children myself. I was a teacher. I was a Boy Scout leader. I was a church pastor, a youth pastor, and I've always enjoyed being around children. So I think that is something that maybe if you're a doctor or doing something else, then you have more like a passion for the technical side of things, and I have more. My passion was more with really the children in itself, the family in itself. That is my something that I always saw as like the most beautiful thing. There's also, of course, a enormous shortage in donors, and that felt to me like a call because there's so many fertility doctors. They're all like competing with each other. Uh, and there's not something like this in donors. And I've always felt attracted to things where there's a high demand. And this is also something that I feel like, yeah, you have to find things that are it's a high demand of, and then you can give your help. In this case, it's of course voluntarily. Um, but I felt more in my place, in a place where there is like a high demand.
Right. So you were seeing a high demand and you also had an inner drive kind of instinct to become a biological father and a role model, something like that as well at the same time.
No, not necessarily. I was driven by the idea to help the families. Nothing else. Like, of course, I was happy to. It didn't hurt me to know that okay, there will be children with my genetics or something. But the passion of being a donor was for me to help, and nothing else. Like, oh, I wanted to be something more than a donor because that was a struggle that I had. I really didn't. I was afraid that I would feel more than a donor, and I wanted to separate that. I want to become a father myself, but on the traditional way and not in a donor, co-parent, or something else. That was really for me not possible. So I decided, okay, I give it a year to think about what do I feel when I if I will become a donor, and I realized that yes, I really want to be only a donor, and that's it, and not something else, and just to help these families, and nothing else than that.
Okay, interesting. And you are not yet a traditional father as well, are you?
No, no, I don't have yet my own family.
Would you say being a donor and being like in public discussion like you were because of Netflix makes it harder for you to become a traditional father? Or where would you see the reason that you're not a traditional father yet?
No, it has not really anything to do with that. Actually, the my fiance, she came after the Netflix. I the reason why I stopped being a donor was because, and I wanted to was indeed that I saw that my work as a, or help as a donor was interfering with my own plans to start a family. Because I was a donor, constantly traveling, I was constantly being called and always on the move, and that was interfering with my own social life, with finding a wife. And so then I decided I need to stop with being a donor. And it's the moment that it's happened was when my relationship ended, and I was very hurt by that. And I saw, yeah, I'm not really. Um, I need to focus now on my own life as well, not only being a donor. And it's nice to mean something to so many people, but you also have the right to have your own life and your own goals for the future.
Right. Yeah, I'm struggling with that myself a little bit because I've been traveling as a donor for 1.5 years now, and it's impossible to maintain a strong long-term relationship to a woman while you're traveling so much like that. And especially if you're planning to have children, you don't want to be a long distance father or dad, right? So I've decided to go more with shipping routes and work with private donations and shipping. So directed donation, they call it, not sperm banks. I don't work with any sperm banks. Um, but yeah, do you think that your understanding of donor responsibility has evolved or changed over time? Because at first, what you just described was you started saying, "I just want to help," right? You just want to basically. There's a demand. People are in need of a donor. They're looking for a healthy donor, attractive, tall, blonde hair are good benefits in the reproductive marketplace as well. So people will choose you over a donor who's short, has you have a great hairline for someone who's 40 years old. So those are all things
Yes,
that
like
I'm looking for, right? They're hoping to work with someone like you, and I know that myself. I know the demand for blue eye donors and light feature donors is high, and the supply is just not um, high enough. Now, you felt like it was your responsibility to help the families in that situation, but since becoming like a global, public discussion, I would say I would even argue in the Western industrialized worlds, 1 out of 3 or 4 people knows your story just because It's been so big on Netflix. Many people watch Netflix, and when something goes viral on Netflix, it's just like when a person goes viral on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter. So many people I told I'm a donor, they think of you first. So you have a responsibility as a donor, even over or with in connection to other donors, if you want or not, because what they hear about one donor, they also think about others. Do you think your understanding of donor responsibility has changed over those? I think it was 17 to 20 years.
I think that is the interesting thing of the whole Netflix. They cover in the 20 years, is it? Yeah, almost 20 years of being a donor, and they come up with what is basically the story. I met the parents. I hand them over the cup. We have a conversation. They got pregnant, or 1 month later we met again, and they got pregnant. And that's the whole story of the Netflix. They had to add in like two juicy stories that were not true. Like there was a story about mixing a sperm, which I never did, of course. And there was a story from another donor that was talking about Africa or something, had also nothing to do with me. So the whole story is like, okay, this is a donor that was helping people for 18 years, and some people disagree with the amount of the amount of children, and others that are not disagreeing with that are not featured in the series. It shows to me clearly that I've always held my initial like mission, and that is to help people in the best way possible.
Yeah. Your story and what has happened there and Netflix has motivated me to put a lot of content out there myself, because I feel like there's two paths you can take as a donor, and that's what I'm seeing is you're either a fully open donor or you are fully anonymous. Because if you're fully open and you share, I share that I'm a Christian, I share that I'm donor conceived, so I talk a lot, I build a trust with the people. They would never believe that I would mix sperm samples or would call myself the Lion of Mombasa, because I'm so incredibly open, right? And that's something I definitely learned from your story, and I'm also trying to pass on to other donors, is to make this decision. I'm very pro open, like be as open as you can, because of the children's. It's important for the children. But you were kind of working at a time where open donors were very new, I would say, and you had no Jonathan Mayer you could look to and make decisions based on his mistakes, and everyone makes mistakes. I'm also going to retire as a donor someday, having made mistakes. If I wouldn't make mistakes, then it means I didn't try enough. I didn't go far enough with my work. That's at least my personal belief. I don't try to make any major mistakes, of course. But I want my donor conceived children to look at my story, learn from it, and then make their own mistakes in their journey towards family, or what I consider extended family. Being donor conceived, I've grown up with an extended family myself, so I that's kind of what I've seen with the donors. Now, did you back then when you were donating expect your story to become such a public discussion, because you knew that you were going in the high numbers as a prolific donors? You were aware that you were going to be a man with one of the most children out there, biological children, genetically yours out there. So you must have known at some point that there will be maybe a backlash or a public discussion. Is that something you expected, or what did you expect when you were going into the, hundreds of donor conceived children?
Um, yeah, on one hand, I expected some like, because I know that people don't have a real understanding of the situation of being a donor. So, and this is also what I saw on the Netflix. They didn't share. They, for example, the title. They said "The Man with 1,000 Kids." So that is, of course, a huge, like, how do you call it? Like a what they call the titles.
It's a line, exaggerate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like people will go on that, like, oh, a man with 1,000 children. They didn't say is the sperm donor that helped 225 families conceive 550 children. No, they had to exaggerate first of all, 1,000, and then they had to say a man. So I think most people were fascinated by the title, but when they hear the story, it's like, yeah, he's a donor. Yeah, okay. And then when they find out that the amount of children, like 550, you can argue, okay, is it a lot? That's a good discussion. But for example, in the United States, the guidelines are, what is it, like 25 per 300,000. So if you use that number to the Netherlands, I could have only in the Netherlands 550 children. And this is something I was thinking about. Okay, sure, maybe people will not understand it, and there will be maybe media coverage. But on the other hand, I understand, yeah, but this is something just the people are not aware of, that this is how donorship works. If they order sperm from Cryos or European Sperm Bank, they know that they can end up with a lot of siblings around the world and also maybe in the hundreds. So yes, I was expecting like, okay, maybe this will be a coverage, but also on the other hand, I was not like afraid of that. I say, okay, it's a donor that is helping, and it was more like I could understand that it will be, because it's such a new form of donorship, being open donor. And that is also what triggered it, because if you tell, okay, this donor was helping with 1,000 children in the clinic, which is possible, which happens. It's not very, you don't have really like couples that will say, oh, we met the guy and he was using his charm to whatever. And that makes the story. So I think that was I could understand that, oh yeah, that is an interesting story for media, because I met the people and they were from such a wide range of, like, culturally and socially, and you have so many different people that I've helped. That could be interesting for a story. Yes, that was what I expected.
Are you suing Netflix about any of the accusations they made in the documentary?
Yeah, we're in the process of doing that, but we're still negotiating. So we want to give Netflix the possibility to um, to change things and to hear our side. So that's what we, of course, we want to share. Of course, this is our side, my side, and they have, of course, the possibility to do something about our complaints. But that is, of course, still running.
On a stress scale of 1 to 10, or 0 to 10, and 0 being, you're just doing yoga meditation, and 10 being your best friend partner passed away. On a scale of 0 to 10, how stressful were the months around, or the year around, that release of the Netflix documentary for you?
A good question. I think somewhere in between. It is stress, but I knew that I didn't do anything wrong over the 18 years. So, and it shows in the movie. They at some point they were talking about my backpack, like, oh, he's wearing a backpack and his secret backpack, and you could clearly see that they had to fill the whole sort to get to the 2-3 hours. So I wasn't worried about that. It's more, yeah, it's of course, but of course you are in stress because you don't know how this attention will change your life. So there is a certain stress. So I would say like 5. It's definitely a stress moment, but it's not. You have no fear of dying, of it's not like when, for example, my relationship ended. That was more stress than this. And yeah, when you are good in your own skin, when you have your own safety bubble wherein you feel safe. Yeah, sure. It's 99% is on media. So to say, like, it's online. The discussions are online. The movie is online.
Has someone attacked you in person?
No, I had one time somebody was screaming something. It was in Germany, by the way, but not surprising. In Berlin, some lady. I was like, okay, I saw from the corner of my eyes, like, okay, I better. She was like screaming, but she was on drugs or something. But she was screaming like things. But most of the time when people approach me, they say, "Hey, cool, I saw you in the Netflix movie, and it's a lot of baloney. You did a good thing. And can I take a selfie?" It's
Are you getting more positive attention than negative attention
oh,
from?
definitely, yes, yes, yes. I like I said, this was the only time that somebody would really. I after that, I had no bad experiences in real life. Online, of course, you get sometimes some creep that is calling you names, but yeah, they feel safe online. But in real life, I don't have this at all.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Have you received more? I know you're not a donor, active donor anymore, but this was still something another donor asked. He also has donated to, I think, around 200 biological donor conceived children. And he is also a bit worried that at some point, there will be a backlash because he has two or three hostile recipients, which happens as well. The less the donor screens, the more hostile recipients they usually at the end of the day have. Um, do you have an advice for him if something releases like a Netflix documentary or a newspaper article, because Kyle Gordy, for example, has said that the media is actually giving him most of his requests nowadays. Have you received requests even after the Netflix documentary that portrayed you incredibly negatively um, from women who were like, "Hey, I saw the Netflix documentary. Are you still a donor?"
Yes, sure, yeah, yeah. They write me on YouTube, for example, or etc. I ignore them, of course, but yeah, sure, they write me. Like I said, I stopped in 2019, so for me it's finished. But indeed, there are people still writing me to for help, and I say sorry, I've stopped in 2019. I'm what is it now? 7 years already in retirement. So
Yeah. Now, from now on, you can forward these recipients to the Open Donor Association because, as you know, I'm trying to help other men become better donors, better biological fathers as well. I think there's a lot of healthy lives to be created, and I think we men have a big role in helping women have life. May that be as a donor or as a father or a dad. We have a huge obligation there. Is there a reason you back then, when you said you wanted to help these couples, were doing it all yourself? I mean, you could have started a community or connect to other donors and help them become donors as well. I mean, you're not the only tall guy with blonde hair in the Netherlands. Have you tried to help other men become donors?
yeah, I asked in my group of friends, but one said, "Okay, I have a girlfriend; she will not allow me." Another said, "Oh, I will be too curious. I cannot like detach myself from that child like a donor. I will feel like a father." Another just didn't want to have any children at all. So I tried it this way. I thought, okay, that's enough for me to yeah, to have some role in growing the donor like stock in the Netherlands. I wasn't really thinking, okay, I should start a foundation or something. That's not really my quality. I enjoyed helping people, and what I especially enjoy was meeting them, because it's you see real human being. You can sense something of the desperation, and you can help them out of that desperation. That is something very wonderful. I think that is what kept me going, to see people that really are struggling to find a donor, to have a donor that is open and that is decent and not charging any money, and is not fooling them, and is not wanting only to do natural insemination, all these things. And I think that was for me what was the most wonderful as a donor, that you can see there's people coming in the restaurant, that you're meeting them first time, and during the conversation, you see them change and you see them open up and you see them starting to be very happy. And you are part of that. You can say, hey, I have something to give to you and I don't want anything in return. Just be a good parent. That's the only thing I require. I don't require you to be certain education or a certain look or anything. Just be a loving parent and I can help you. That's
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. That's something I've seen and why I went from being an entrepreneur to becoming a donor. Because as an entrepreneur, you build things that can also just collapse and sometimes might feel meaningless if you build a software and then AI is better, or I had a bunch of stores and then the physical brick mortar stores were not doing well anymore. And so after my business was gone, all my employees were gone, and everything was basically back at zero for me. I was lucky enough to invest in a few things so that I could kind of spend more time working on what was my next project. And I realized as a donor, you're helping create this life that has an impact far over anything you might be able to do as a person yourself into future lives and grandchildren and great grandchildren. So I see why that is motivating and why that feels I wouldn't say powerful, but it feels very magical to be part of this journey and to help the mothers, be healthy mothers, to help the mothers be more prepared for the journey, to be emotionally prepared for that it might take a bit longer to be successful, and hear from other experiences from other recipients, because mothers are very quiet about their journey compared to us donors, because they have a private family they want to protect. So a lot of mothers, I guess, who work with you are still very happy they did, and they're still very happy that their child has a lot of healthy half siblings around the world, which is a wonderful network. It's kind of a great, you know, some might say growing up without a father comes with a dad, or a father comes with downsides. I grew up with a single mother by choice, and I felt like it had a lot of advantages having a great network and not having only one male role model, but multiple different male role models. My donor was in my life when I was 15 years old. My grandfather, my uncle, my great granduncle, they were all in my life. So I felt like I had a lot of advantages, which is also why I want to pass it on and give women this opportunity to do and to become recipients. Now, I was lucky again when I first started that I had retired financially with some investments I made, and I was renovating some real estate in Germany that I could maintain my life. But what did you do, or what did you have to pay for the travel as a donor if you didn't charge the recipients? How did you have a remote job? And also now you're still traveling the world, as I'm seeing on your YouTube, visiting donor conceived children on the way. How do you finance that?
Yeah, I got support from the family, so they pay my travels when I come to visit. Um, and some also give me gifts. They buy clothes for me or things like that. So that is why I'm able to travel this time. Yeah, yeah, because they invite me and I stay with them a while, or I stay in a hotel and they pay the hotel for me and the travels. But
Are you
I'm unemployed, so I don't have a job.
are you planning to find employment or to work, or do you want to continue to be in the lives so actively as a donor and travel?
No, I'm planning to move to a country where I can get some land and to build a very small, self-sustaining house and to live there with my fiance and just to live off some animals and very off grid sort of say that is my but it will not be in probably not in Europe because land is very expensive. um so I'm researching options, but it will be probably outside of the European Union.
So you mentioned you helped more than 200 families with more than 500 children. How confident are you in that number on a scale of 1 to 10? Because as far as I know, you also work with clinics and sperm banks. And even me, when I do directed donation or I work with clinics for a private client or recipient, I also charge for my donations because I invest that money in the Open Donor Association, help people have children in other ways. Just like you, I can't keep up with the demand of recipients, and I wouldn't be able to help everyone. So I try to find other ways to leverage kind of my impact and my help there. But back to you, you say you think you helped around more than 200 families, more than 500 children, but how can you state that number fairly confidently, given that even me as a directed donor with clinics, they could like take my samples away, or I could give a recipient a sample and she could not tell me that she's pregnant and just not reach out to me again. This could happen. So I would say my track numbers, I'm confident in maybe 98%, 95%, something like that. Now you went to banks and clinics where recipients also don't have to report their pregnancies. In Fairfax, Sperm Bank, for example, said they believe only 20 to 30% of pregnancies from the recipients are actually reported. So when they have the 10 family limit in the US, that's just the reported pregnancies. It could be 5 times or 3 times more than that. Um, how confident are you there? Like, fully honestly.
Yeah, very confident. I can see I can understand the question. As a known donor, I kept records of that. So that's the amount that I helped as an open donor or known donor. And the clinics in the Netherlands, they give you the number of pregnancies. The only that is not giving out numbers is cryos, and I've been a donor there a while. So that is the only, like how do you say, black hole? I don't know, or black box. I don't know what exact number, but for me, I can say, okay, I say 550 is can be more, can be less, but that is the number. And if people are say, oh, I say, okay, then you should ask cryos to release the number. But they don't release the numbers. So yeah, that's not really, you cannot contribute to my. That's just something that happens in the in the donor world. Numbers are not being shared publicly or even with donors. That's something. But for my record, that's what I found. Like the clinics that I helped in the Netherlands, they gave numbers. For example, one clinic said, okay, 8 pregnancies, and others had 10, and then combine that with the amount that I've helped as a known donor, that will be roughly 550.
Okay. But you could have chosen not to work with cryos because you could have done the research and be aware that these pregnancies are not tracked, and say I'm only going to be an open and known donor. Like me, for example, I don't work with banks because I want the children to be able to know every one of their half siblings. I know my 21 half siblings. I'm very happy that I do. Um, and the one thing I would not like is not it's like the fear of incest thing. To me is a fallacy. It makes no sense at all. It's stupid.
Mm.
It's like it's basically, I like to say, it's an internal tribal instinct, right? Because if you and I were in a tribe and then you have 200 children, first of all, you're mate suppressing the other men by doing that, right? The other men can't have children, so that will get fear up in the other men. But you're also risking the whole tribe, because of course, if we were like only 500 people and one has 200 children, then there's a risk that the tribe will not be able to procreate for another generation or a couple more generations. So it makes sense that we have these fears, but it's really a fallacy. But I still like knowing who are my half siblings, just to have that peace of mind and to feel like the puzzle in my life is everything in the right place. It seems like that was something you were not very concerned about when you were a donor.
Sorry, what is the exact question?
So the exact question is, um, when you were a donor, did you not consider or think that the donor conceived children of yours? I understand that the general clinic and bank system is not good. I'm not arguing on their behalf or anything like that. I'm saying I'm not actively not donating to them because I feel like the donor conceived children in my extended family and the recipients I help, they deserve full knowledge, openness, and transparency. And it seems like that was something you were not very concerned about when you were an open donor. And it's a conversation I have with new donors all the time. We talk about it in the Open Donor Association, where we say numbers maxing versus quality maxing, where some donors are interested in having high numbers and helping as many as possible, and others are interested in helping as good as they can the people that they do help. So for me, that includes not being a bank donor, right? Because I want the children to know, and I want my own children to know exactly who are my half siblings, where are they, just so that the puzzle in their head is in place and they can, be at peace there internally. Even though, again, I'm not saying this has anything to do with incest fear on my end, at least. How would you say, or why did you not consider that when you were a donor? And has anything changed since then? Would you do things differently now?
Well, I found out as I started that I, for example, was offering to parents like more information, and some would grab that and would say, yes, we want to have more information, want to know more about you. And others were more interested in, no, we just want your help, and we'll give the little information that you provide to the children. The clinic, of course, the parents will not know anything about the donor. They will get like a list. Okay, this is, for example, with me in the clinic, it says like, oh, he's into music, he's a teacher, he's blonde, blue eyes, and that's it. That's the information. And personally, for me as a donor, I think I see it more from the parents' perspective. I want to help parents. That was always or potential parents. That has always been my focus. I was think, okay, there's a different range of what people expect from a donor. Some really want only to have a known donor, open identity. They want contact, and others are on the other side of the spectrum. They just want to have a donor, their help, and they want to build a family. Whether they're a heterosexual couple, that the father really wants to not have a lot knowledge about the donor, so that he will not it won't bother him at all. So I was always a donor for that reason, to help parents. And the only thing that I do not agree with is fully anonymous. That is, of course, not allowed anymore in the Netherlands. Um, was something for me out of the question. I think that eventually, because all the children from the all the kind of situations that I've helped, whether it's from a known open donor, from home insemination, or from a clinic, or from cryos, they all have the right when they turn 16, I think, to get information from the donor and to know who he is. And if they want to find siblings, then with that information, then they can go into an extent to find out their siblings. But that was for me very important to help parents that want not, of course, anonymity. But I was not in my like seeing that, oh, somebody that wants have like little information about the donor is not worth helping, or is not. I feel comfortable with that because I can understand their position. Sometimes I will do it when I will need a donor. I will do it differently, but I can understand that, do it from their perspective, that their people are different. So for me, that was always my vision was always the parents, because I had such a strong experience in my youth in church with several families that were childless, and the pain that it caused. That my focus has always been, okay, I want to help parents who have children. And yeah, of course, it's good that the donor children, can have information. I wanted that they can decide by themselves if they want, that they can know the identity of the donor father. But also, if they don't want that, that's also totally fine. I fully agree with the system. Also, I agree with the way banks work. So if they don't want to hand out numbers, that's their policy. I feel morally I accept that, because otherwise I wouldn't help them. So I'm kind of flexible in that regard. But yeah, I see it, of course, from a purely donor perspective, and you are, of course, donor conceived, and I can also respect that you see it from totally different perspective and not want to help as a clinical donor or anything. That's but I'm very much for freedom. I think that in Europe and the Netherlands, the rules are very strict. They want to limit the amount of donors, but some people, some parents, they say, "Oh, we don't care so much if there's more siblings." I think that the rules are very strict in the Netherlands compared to the USA, for example, where the rules are more lenient. And I'm more for freedom. I think the parents have the right to decide and not have a government say, "Oh no, we cannot allow this or that." Um, yeah, that's sort of my mindset around this.
I agree. I'm for a free reproductive marketplace, just like the sexual marketplace is purely free. In many ways now, we have the same situation in the sexual marketplace where I also think awareness and consent is incredibly important. So of course you can't ask an unborn child for its consent. It's really hard to do that. You can just let it flow and have it born and then ask a few years later for its opinion, and then it can share and you can adjust your strategy as a donor. Now again though, is there anything you would do differently with your experience and the situations you've gone through where some people were criticized that you didn't give fully informed consent when it came to the disclosure of the donor scale or the numbers of children? You think there's something you would do differently or not? If you wouldn't do anything differently, if you don't regret anything, is there an advice you would give to new donors? Or if one of your donor conceived children, like I'm not your donor conceived child, but I could be that child, right? If they wanted to be a donor, what advice would you give them when they choose that route? What could they do differently?
It's very difficult to say something about it because every country has its own rules. You can see in the Netherlands, they had this donor before me. It's called Ed Huben, and he had 100 children, and no foundation was suing him or wanting to stop him. Um, and in another country, you can have much more freedom as a donor, or but so I think it's very difficult. I just want to say to donors, be a very decent person and don't make it about yourself. It's you're helping the families, and I hear, like you say, numbers maxing and whatever. I totally distance myself from any form of like heroism that the donors think that they're special or something. You are just a helper. That was also one of the questions that your viewers asked, like, do you think your genes are I really didn't have anything like this. I am critical of myself. I know my flaws, and I just wanted to help where nobody else wanted to help these people. The government didn't want to help them because they make the rules so tight that the waiting lists are very long. And the media is not helping because they portray donors all as creeps and scary. Um, and yeah, it's that's where I end up. I wanted to help them because basically they were neglected. Nobody else wanted to help them. When the anonymity was abolished in the Netherlands, suddenly tens of banks were closed. No man wanted to help them anymore. So I thought, hey, I step in to help these people to get their family. And that is, if you want to be a good donor, be that, and don't make it about yourself. And it's not, you're not a, it will also not change. I have helped a lot of people, but I feel still the same as 20 years ago. I'm the same person. I don't feel like I have accomplished like a goal or something. It's just I help these people. I gave that away. I gave my time for them, and that is the reward that I know I did something with my life that was useful. And that is my advice: be a good, decent donor. Don't squeeze anything out of it. Don't make it about yourself or anything else. Stay humble. It's if you are a good donor, uh, be happy that you got this wonderful calling from God, and that people choose you to, that they trust you. Oh, this is a good, nice donor. Um, I think that is an advice. Stay humble. Stay yourself. Um, yeah, I think. By the way, I see my battery slowly going.
You can charge.
So, yeah, I only need to find a.
No worries.
All right, guys, at this part, Jonathan had to charge his laptop and I made a cut. We're going to record and publish a second part as well if you like this video. If you do like it and if you want to support us, give us a like, a comment, something like that. If you want to be a donor or if you want to be a recipient and you're looking for a donor, you want to be a mother, you can find the Open Donor Association online. There's a link under this video. There's a link on my channel. You can find all my other social media platforms as well. And I hope you liked this video. I wish you healthy future generations, and I hope that I can inspire you to create healthy life. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you guys whenever the next great video appears on my channel or my other socials.